At some point, the question changes. You stop asking, what should I be doing? And start asking, why does this feel harder than it should? Not out of frustration, out of awareness. Because effort, it isn't the issue anymore, and it hasn't been for a while. This is your host, Kayree Jonae, and this is The Weight of Her Story. You've followed instructions, you've committed, you've stayed consistent, and you've applied discipline where discipline was required. And for a long time, that worked until it didn't. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just enough for you to notice that the return on effort started to shift. Same inputs, different response. That's usually the moment you pause. Not because you're tired of trying, but because you're tired of pretending the disconnect isn't there. Because deep down, you know this isn't about motivation. Most people are taught to assume that if something stops working, they must have done something wrong. But what if the issue isn't what you're doing? It's who you're doing it as. What if the instructions you've been following were never written with your body in mind? The one-size-fits-all advice assumes bodies are neutral. They aren't. Bodies carry history. They carry stress exposure. They carry years of adaptation. They learn how to survive demand, how to compensate for pressure, how to keep you functional even when the system is strained. And none of that shows up on the outside right away. This is where confusion usually lives. You know you're capable. You know you're consistent. You know you're not avoiding the work. So when progress slows, when recovery takes longer, when inflammation lingers, it doesn't make any sense until you realize you may be following a system that works well for someone, just not for you. Generic systems don't fail immediately. They work just enough to keep you going. They produce results that look acceptable. They keep you functional. They reward effort. But underneath, something else is happening. Your body isn't adjusting. It's redistributing energy, reprioritizing your system, borrowing from recovery to maintain output. That's not dysfunction. That's compensation. And compensation is often mistaken for strength. Because you can still perform, still show up, still handle what's required. But over time, that cost shows up quietly, not as collapse, as inefficiency. This is usually when the internal conversation starts to change. You don't say it loud, but you notice things like, why does this drain me more than it used to? Why does recovery feel slower? Why does my body react differently now? You're not confused. You're observant. And that matters. At this stage, maturity looks different. It's not about pushing harder. It's not about tightening control. It's about precision, about asking better questions. Not emotional questions, operational ones. Questions like, what does my body recover from easily? And what doesn't it? What kind of stress lingers longer than it should? What habits feel sustainable and which ones quietly tax me? These aren't doubts, they're data points. There's a moment when you realize that continuing the same way will cost more than adjusting. Not because you can't keep going, but because you understand the trade-off now. This is where leadership turns inward, where health stops being about appearance and starts being about longevity, where performance gives way to sustainability. Everybody has a design, a way to handle stress, processes fuel, recovers from demand. Ignoring that design doesn't make you disciplined. It makes you inefficient. And efficiency, it matters. When you intend to keep going, not just for the next goal, but for the next decade, this is the moment alignment becomes non-negotiable. Not because something is wrong, but because something has outgrown the system you're using. One size never fit you. It just worked long enough to keep you from questioning it. Alignment isn't about slowing down. It's about matching your effort to the body that's carrying it. And once you recognize that, you stop forcing yourself into frameworks that quietly work against you. That's not quitting. That's evolution. You don't need new motivation. You need better alignment. And that begins with understanding that your body has always been specific, even when the advice was not. Next time, we will talk about the cost of this mismatch. But until then, take care of yourself today, even if it's in just one small way, because you deserve that much.